What's going on, everybody? It's your boy back with another video. Just stopped to fill up a little bit, grab a little orange cream rain. I am on my way to work. Gonna work a little morning shift at the brewery, get that taken care of, get that money. Funnily enough, I recorded this entire video yesterday evening. But I was testing out a new ND filter on my camera, but there was like a giant green smudge over in the bottom right corner. It just looked like absolute junk. So we are going to re-record that video real quick. As per usual, we are on the 2026 Yamaha R3 70th anniversary edition. And as you can tell by the title of the video, I want to have a quick little chat. As I do, I want to have a discussion about the Yamaha R3 and equivalent low CC sport bikes. I think really a great example or the greatest specimen in this discussion is the R3, though, because it is technically a super sport. Even though it is a parallel twin, it does get classified by Yamaha as a super sport. Kind of has a more lean forward angle, much more aggressive riding position than something like the Ninja 500, which I would say I do agree with, as I have owned and ridden a Z500. I've kind of hung out with some low CC Ninjas. Point of the video is, this motorcycle, are they too slow? And I think it's a very interesting thing that comes up very often when you, as a new rider, are buying your first motorcycle. Generally, you're going to lean more towards the R3s and the Ninja 500s, 400s, 300s, things of that nature. Maybe a CBR 300 if you're balling like that, CB 300, whatever. Low CC sport bikes. And if you have friends who are more experienced riders per se, they will say, don't get a 300, don't get an R3, you're going to get bored of it. Which I just think is blatantly false. I am of the opinion that while the Yamaha R3 is lacking in the power department in some ways, it's really not, too little, I would say, for anybody. And I really stand by that. I am a pretty experienced rider, I would say. I've been riding for a handful of years now. I believe I'm coming up on my 4th year, actually, which, granted, isn't as long as some other folks, especially some people who are on this wonderful YouTube platform. But the Yamaha R3 does lack in some departments. And I would highly recommend you go watch a couple of my previous videos, specifically the highway review of my Yamaha R3 that I uploaded not too long ago. And I would recommend watching my video about picking your first motorcycle. I think there's some pretty valuable information in both of those videos. And I do think there's a couple of good talking points that I am hoping to elaborate on a little bit in this video. The Yamaha R3 is not a slow bike by any means. At the end of the day, you can still, breeze through traffic, you can cut up. Yeah, on the highway, you're not winning any races, but that's not what this motorcycle is built for. So it's almost like getting a pickup truck and complaining that it's too tall, or it's almost, I would say more realistically, it's like buying a Prius and complaining that you can't tow your pickup truck behind it. You know, there are different jobs for all of these vehicles, and the R3 and lower CC bikes fit into a very niche category in some ways, but also very broad in other ways. I would say fairly niche if you are an experienced rider, because this is just low CC fun. When you are getting your first bike, when you're first learning how to ride, let's say you hop on to an R6 instead of an R3. I would not say an R7, because that is still, as far as I'm aware, unless something changed, that is just a larger parallel twin. So the power band is going to be a lot more similar to the R3 versus something like the R6, which has, I believe those have the Yamaha cross planes. Maybe that's just the R1. I don't know. Point is, whole different power band on these middleweight and leader bikes. You know, the power range, the effective power range on those bikes is going to be high in the rev range. Now, if you are a new rider learning, and as I mentioned, you get an R6 instead of an R3, well, here's something that you're going to have to now learn. Not only are you going to have to learn the new rider basics of being comfortable in turns, understanding the lean angle on your bike, braking, simple things like that, tire management, traffic control, you know, all this random stuff that applies to literally every single motorcycle, no matter what you hop on, clutch control, low speed maneuvering, that is universal, whether you have a high CC or a low CC bike. And here is the truth to it all, is that is not something that you really learn in a week or a month or 2 months of riding. That is generally something that you don't get comfortable with until about a year of riding, I would say. You know, to be truly comfortable, after a month of consistent riding on your first motorcycle, yeah, you'll be comfortable enough taking some turns, but you're not going to be dragging me on public roadways. Yeah, that's unfortunately just not going to happen. I'm sure there's some people who have been able to do that and have been very quick learners, and it's almost been second nature to them riding a motorcycle. But your average new rider, that's just not going to happen for you. So you are learning all of that stuff on your new motorcycle because you are, hypothetically speaking, a new rider. But if you have a middleweight or, you know, leader bike or above, strictly speaking sports bikes in this case, you know, high CCV twins, that's going to be a whole different topic. But you also need to learn power band management, which the big issue on these inline motors and their equivalents, since your power band, since your peak power is going to be so high in the rev range, you are going to, in my opinion, have a rough time. You're going to be taking these corners with your RPMs probably somewhat low. You're in a gear too high, if we're talking, you know, achieving optimal power. And let's say you are learning throttle control in a turn. Well, you're on that high CC bike and you're sitting right before the power really comes in your turn. Well, let's say, since you're not the best at throttle control, you give it a little too much gas, rev range hits that power peak, and then you just fly up, back tire kicks out, and you know, you've wiped out on your brand new R6, new to you R6. I hope you're not driving a brand new R6 as your first bike, because those are the, as far as I'm aware, track exclusive bikes, no headlights, no nothing. So maybe avoid that as your first bike. Get an old R6. New to you is what I'm trying to say here. But you're learning all of this stuff, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but handling these advanced power bands is not very easy for a new rider. When you look at a dyno chart for something like an R3 versus an R6, the R3 is very consistent along that dyno chart, but something like an R6 is going to go up, 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 and then you hit that high rev range and it spikes up. That is a crap load of power coming in out of nowhere, essentially. A very easy thing to compare it to, if you are coming into motorcycles from the automotive world, turboed cars. If you drive a turbocharged car, not talking like an EcoBoost, Eco Turbo style car, and specifically a turbo car, not something like this supercharged Mustang GT, this beautiful Roush. That thing looks nice, man. Yeah, not talking superchargers, but specifically a turbo. That turbo needs to spool up. You need to give it time, generally speaking, unless you have some crazy, anti-lag setup or something of that nature. Your turbo is going to need to spool up, and your power is not coming in until you're higher in the rev range. And if you've driven a car, like, find some dude with a big turbo Civic and whip that thing around up and down the block, you're going to get into that boost range, and it is going to put you back in your seat. You're going to be skirting those tires all around. It is not going to be easy for you. That is kind of similar to these inline motorcycles. So, what's up, buddy? What I'm trying to say is, if you are a new rider and you are afraid, or you are being told that you are going to get bored or grow out of a lower CC bike, I would say that's just not true. You truly do need, I would say, a minimum 6 months, but at least a year. That 6 month minimum on that low CC bike, that is, I would say, for older folks trying to get into riding, older being 25 and above, such as, somebody like me. I didn't start riding until the later half of my 20s, which I am still in, by the way. But I was much more mature. My brain was fully developed, so it was very easy for me to understand. On top of that, I have an automotive background. Once again, go check out my About Me video, and I kind of run over. I've owned 25 different cars in, my driving career. I am very comfortable on motor vehicles. I understand how a throttle works. I understand power bands. I have done it all. So, why do people say that the R3 is not powerful enough? I would say that the biggest reason people say that, I'd be more than willing to bet anybody who does say that to you is a highway warrior. More likely than not. They take their bikes out, maybe they have a 600 or a liter bike. They are on the highways every time they ride. They probably do not daily drive their bikes, and if they do, I'd be also more than willing to bet that they say, man, this thing is not fun to daily drive. And I totally believe them. On the highways, those bikes are fantastic. You have so much straight line speed, you've got enough power to get you in and out of any situation imaginable. The R3 is not like that. This is not a highway bike. This bike is built for exactly what I'm doing here. You take this bike to the track, you take it on the twisties, you take it on back roads. With that manageable power band, you can be on the throttle, any gear, any rev range, and you're going to be having a good time, whether you're going straight, leaned over, whatever. I highly recommend hop onto YouTube and search up motorcycle track days, specifically guys who are experienced riders but take an R3 out to the track. Look at how they ride and look at who they are passing on these turns at all times. It's almost, you know, it's almost every time. R3s are beating R6s, R1s on the track because it comes down to who is riding the bike. It comes back to who's holding the handlebars and twisting that throttle. In the car world, we would call it driver mod. You see it with cars too. Look up any track day. I personally think a great one to watch, not only because it's my home track, but because it is such a technical track. I highly recommend watching some track days at Road Atlanta and look at who is almost always winning on the corners. Look who's always crushing the turns. I've seen so many freaking Mazda Miatas blowing past Porsche 911s. I've seen them blow by GT3s. I've seen them blow by Corvettes, you know, Z06s, Z07s, whatever. It doesn't matter. It all comes down to the driver. These Miatas have like 95 horsepower, yet they're putting up some of the best track times. Yeah, they lose on the straight, but they always pass these guys in the corners. And that, too, that was brutal. Whoops. They're losing on the straights, but they're always passing these guys in the corners, and that's what really matters. So all of these dudes who are telling you, don't get an R3, you're going to get bored. I hate to say it, but most of the time, again, they're highway warriors, which takes no skill. Compared to more technical riding, you know, taking turns and stuff, not to say that I do not enjoy highway riding. I think that's some of the most fun riding, because you can just go and not have a care in the world. But you know, there's also a reason why you see a million reels with highway warriors versus track day guys, or, you know, people going through Tail of the Dragon on their nice bikes. There's a reason for that. It is so much easier to get into the highway fun. As a quick little rundown conclusion, is the Yamaha R3 slow? Generally speaking, not at all. And I think you are doing it a disservice to just blanket statement call it slow. Yeah, it's not going to win any drag races, but it'll smoke you around the turns. It will crush you on the track if the right person is behind it. And that's just a fact. So, quick little pointer. If you own an R3 and you feel like, you know, you've been riding less than a year, maybe longer than a year, but you're not, you know, a consistent daily rider, and you feel like you're outgrowing your R3, go ahead and take that thing out, hit some twisties. See if you can drag your left knee, drag your right knee. See if you can drag your left knee, drag your right knee. You know, try and test your skills. Are you able to drag knee, you know, going slow? Are you able to do it going fast? Are you comfortable taking these big, crazy turns and crazy roads? I would be more than willing to bet you're not. And you know what? If you can do all that, try and hit some wheelies on your R3. That'll challenge you. It's possible, but it will challenge you. You've never outgrown this bike. I downgraded both of my previous bikes and got this R3, and I am still learning so much from it. Anyway, y'all have a great day. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.